As always, I'm James, and I know it's been quite a while, as unavoidable. I've been gone at BMT, but I'm back just in time for the drop of Legions of Nagash. I'm recording this on the day of release. It'll probably get put up 1-2 days later, but I'll do it as fast as I can. But I wanted to share a brief review of the book. I'm not going to go super in depth. I'll talk a little bit about the spells and all, about the overall book, my impressions on it, and then the changes to death for the match play system. So let's dive right in. First off, the book retails for about $40, give or take, depending on where you are in the United States, versus the old school softback death book of $15. But don't worry, this book's superior. Obviously, it's a hardback. The artwork, there's definitely more time and effort, if you will, put into that. Even on the inside cover, we have a pretty nice picture of Nagash, and on the back, same thing. It's quite a few different pictures, a lot of which we've seen before, some of which we haven't. Throughout the book, we have the usual character sections where we talk about them and various other units, such as the Soulblight vampires as a whole, and a little section right here on the Bloodseeker paladins, since they're something new, kind of describing what they are. We've got painting sections, kind of give you tips and tricks how to use the GW paints to potentially achieve better results. We've got a couple different sections in the book, which is nice. We have obviously the match play section, where we dive into some of the specifics of that within like the Grand Alliance and the different allegiance options. We have the updated pitch battle profiles in the back in terms of the points costs. Not much really changes there. We have the updated war scrolls, a bit changed here and there, including a few new units, which again I won't be going over too much here. This is more high level. I will be deep diving a bit more in other videos on my thoughts on how Death's evolving, what things I think are right out of the gate winners and losers, and how this again changes for Death in terms of how we play in Age of Sigmar. So in addition to that, we also have the Path to Glory stuff, which is nice. There's additional information there, rewards tables, all that kind of stuff for you. There's also a few narrative-based scenarios that are present here, and then such as this one, tournament tables. And then we have a couple of the other allegiances present. Like we have Classic Death reprinted in here, and Soulblight reprinted in here as well. I don't think we had. Nope, we did not have any of the other ones. So there's no Flesh Eater Court. There's no Night Haunt in here. So you still need the GHB 2017 if you want the rules for those. But anyways, we have the new allegiances: the Legion of Blood, the Legion of Sacrament, the Legion of, I believe it's Night. Yes, Legion of Night, and of course we have the Grand Host of Nagash himself. Each one of these have special rules, such as command traits, artifacts, battle traits, command abilities. In addition to your general's normal command ability, you have additional ones that are all unique to each of them, and they each revolve around the one specific hero. They're either Nagash or one of his Mortarchs. And it says that if you bring that specific one, so for the Grand Host of Nagash, if you bring Nagash, he must be your general. In the Legion of Blood, if you bring Neferata, she must be your general. Knight, Manfred, and Sacrament, of course, Arcan the Black. But other than that, you're free to choose units from any of the death units listed in this book, which is, again, pretty much everything that's currently produced by GW other than Flesh Eater Quartz. And it does say in the back that that these groups, these allegiances, can ally with Flesh Eater Quartz. So you can bring, other than Tomb Kings, obviously, since they're not produced anymore, the entire range of death without really suffering penalties in terms of having, you know, really weak artifacts and command traits, or very limited choices, like we kind of had before whenever the GHB 2017 came out and had the updated death versus these sub-factions that were very well focused. Now you don't get that kind of third level of customization that you got in the GHB 2017. So for example, the Soul Blight had their bloodlines, and we don't see that third level customization in these Grand Hosts of Nagash and the Legions that you can choose from. But the big thing is that they have the battle trait Unquiet Dead, in addition to Deathless Minions, and then they all have special ones. So like Legion's Innumerable for the Grand Host of Nagash at Chosen Guardians, the Master's Teachings and the Black Disciples for Sacrament, Favored Retainers and Immortal Majesty for Blood, and Ageless Cunning and the Bait for Night. So, and in addition, we have 2 new lores of Magic for Death, one for Vampire, and the other, I believe, is lore of the Death Mages. And so, whenever you have a Death Wizard, you can generate additional spells from either one of these 2 lores. They both definitely have ones that seem pretty good. They have a lot of ones that seem very similar within each one. So for example, in the lore of Vampires, you have Blade of Shyish, which generates a mortal wound, Spirit Gut, which generates mortal wounds, Vile Transference, which generates mortal wounds, and then the Amaranthine Orb, which generates mortal wounds. Then you have the Amethyst Stone Pinions and the Soul Pike, which influence opponent's movement, although differently. I'm sorry, the Amethystine Pinions affects your move. And then Lore of the Death Mages, you have Prison of Grief, which can basically neutralize an enemy unit for the turn, 1 in 3 chance on a 5-up. Once you've cast it, cast on a 7. Decrepify, which lowers their damage and their to wound rolls. So basically, like the Lord of the Death Mages as a whole seems to be more about debuffing your opponent, and there's some that aren't debuffs, but like Soul Harvest damages them and heals you. And then the Lore of Vampires is more about actual damage dealing. And then you have this nice thing, the Locus of Shyism, which says if you cast on a 9 or better, and you don't get dispelled, then the spell that you cast triggers twice. So you would resolve it, and then you would resolve it again. And the thing is, though, that you don't have to choose the same target. So the example they give is if you choose Overwhelming Dread, which is the first one in Lore of Death Mages, and it casts, the successful cast causes a debuff of -1 to hit and -1 to bravery of the target. Well, if you chose the same target, then you would give them a -2 to hit and a -2 to bravery if you rolled that 9 or better. So it's pretty powerful. Obviously, it's nice to see Death get kind of a bump up in terms of magic after really taking a big step back, in my opinion, for so long compared to so many other factions, like, of course, Tzeentch. And then there being so many factions like Khorne that can just so easily shrug off magic. It's nice to see Death getting a bit of a boost towards what, in my opinion, should be one of their strongest aspects in the game. So let's talk real quickly about these different hosts. So each of these hosts and legions have 6 command traits, 6 artifacts, which is nice. So you've got 4 of them, 4 new ones, obviously. So you have 24 new artifacts and 24 new command traits. You have these battle traits. Summoning has changed completely. Old school summoning is gone. There is no more of this like spell casting, bringing units onto the table. Instead, you have these this Unquiet Dead battle trait that comes in with your Grand Host and these legions. And it says, after territories have been determined, but before any units have been set up, you can pick up to 2 points in your territory and up to 2 points anywhere on the battlefield to be Gravesites. You may wish to place suitable markers on these points. Instead of setting up a summonable unit on the battlefield, and now summonable is a keyword now, as opposed to having a spell actually for it. It says, instead of setting up a summonable unit on the battlefield, you can place it to one side and say that it is set up in the grave. You may do this with as many units as you wish. At the end of your movement phase, for each death hero within 9 inches of a Gravesite, which you've set up 4 of them, or up to 4 of them, you may pick a single unit in the grave and set it up wholly within 9 inches of that Gravesite and more than 9 inches from any enemy models. Any model that is unable to be set up in this way is slain, as per normal. If the unit is still in the grave at the end of the battle, it is considered slain. Gravesites have the following ability: Invigorating Aura. At the start of your hero phase, pick a friendly summonable unit within 9 inches of this Gravesite. You can either heal D3 wounds that have been allocated to it, or if no wounds are currently allocated to it, you may return a number of slain models to it that have a combined wounds characteristic equal to or less than the roll of the D3. Which is very simply, if you have a summonable unit and they are multi-wound models and you roll, then whatever amount you rolled, you may heal up to that amount, and then if you have excess left over, you can bring back the number of models that equals the total number of wounds remaining. So if they're a 2-wound model and you rolled for 3 points of healing and one of them had 1 wound on them, then you'd heal that 1 wound. If 2 left, they're a 2-wound model, you bring 1 more model back. If there's something like a skeleton or a zombie, which is also summonable, then you will just replace up to the 3 that you roll on it. Now the nice thing is that even though we got rid of the old banner abilities that the units themselves contained to bring back units, nearly every death hero, if not every death hero, I haven't bothered to actually figure out if it's every one, has the ability to regenerate units nearby. So in the same way that this Gravesite does. So the big thing about this is the Gravesite can only heal one unit per turn. Your other heroes, such as a standard Vampire Lord, can pick up to 3 different friendly units within 12 inches of him, and you roll a d3 for each one of them. And the thing is that you can have multiple heroes choose the same target units. It's just that each hero can't pick the same unit, at least with how it's currently worded. That's the case because it says up to 3 different units, and then for each unit roll a d3. But so that's pretty good, right? So like if you have 2 heroes nearby, you can heal 2d6. If you have a Gravesite nearby, that's 3d6 that you can heal to that potential unit. So there's ways to bring units back up very quickly that have been greatly depleted. So that's definitely a plus over the old system of the single d6 from a banner. It's a lower variance. You have a little bit more control. It's a little bit more predictable in terms of what you'll bring back. Let's see, other big changes. I don't really want to go too much into like individual war scrolls on this one. Again, I'm going to do another video on that. But a couple high level stuff. Certain units and what's the way, loadout options that I was accustomed to running and I was accustomed to seeing other people run are no longer an option. For example, your White King with Tomb Blade can no longer take his icon, his totem, that basically buffed all death units nearby, with a potential additional level of save if they're on their last wound. Blood Knights no longer can regenerate models that die. They can only regenerate the wounds on living models. They also do not have the summonable keyword, so there's just no way to bring back the dead model. They did not get a points decrease for that, which kind of stinks. Most units that had banners that brought back other models now have the banner cause a -1 debuff to the opponent's bravery if they're nearby. But this doesn't stack because it says while they're within 6 inches of any death standards, and every single one of these units has that same wording. So it's a nice -1 debuff across the field, but on certain guys like the Blood Knights, it's not really a equal trade, I think is the best way to say it. Zombies can no longer merge. That ability is gone, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. They did receive a minor buff, if you will. Whenever, in terms of like their base stat line, like zombies used to be a 6x6, and then you could get up to +3 in terms of their to hit and to wound. Now zombies are automatic 5-up, 5-up instead, which is a little bit better. And then they get the +1 to hit buff at 20 or more, and now the +2 to hit to wound at 40 instead of 30. So it takes more zombies to kind of reach that critical mass. But if you do get at less than 10, they're minorly better than they used to be. They have the same kind of other rules in terms of Vigor Mortis and the Newly Dead, so that's really the only change with zombies. Other than the standard bearer like everyone else. The corpse cart got split into 2 different profiles because the Unholy Lodestone and the Balefire Brazier got secondary rules attached to those 2. So they still have their same ones of like an Unholy Lodestone giving you a +1 to your casting rolls, and the Brazier giving a -1 to your opponents, but then each one has a secondary rule attached to it. Necromancers can no longer be on horses. Sucks, especially with all the time I've spent on this guy right here. Yeah, it's not a great shot of him, but anyways, he was going to go on this base that I'm still working on, where he's like resurrecting a dead corn guy. Again, video quality is terrible, so you're not going to be able to really tell. But anyways, work in progress, a lot of time on that. I'll still finish it up, but it's not going to really be playable at the moment, which stinks. Bloodseeker Palanquin, not particularly impressed in my first just overview, just kind of glancing over it, but I may have missed something, so I'll look at it a bit more. The new Vampire Lord that's named on Zombie Dragon seems pretty good. Not sure if he's worth his points. I'll have to run some numbers on that. We got the new battalions, which is nice. We got, I think, 6 new ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we got 6. Some of them are very similar to older ones we'd seen before, like we'd seen in the Balance of Power book a War Scroll Battalion for Neferata, which was like her court, and we've seen that reworked a little bit and actually given points this time. We have a Legion of Night one. We have one for each of the legions. For Manfred, which is, in my opinion, the best of the 3, just because it's the most manageable. For example, the Court of New Lamia, the one with Neferata, requires her, 2 Vampire Lords of any type, and a Bloodseeker Palanquin, which, like, Neferata herself is 400 points. A regular Vampire Lord, like that's just on foot, is 140, so you're looking at 280 minimum for those 2. And then the Bloodseeker Palanquin is 320 points as well. So just for those 4 heroes, like, I'm not saying it's a terrible battalion, because it's not. which the battalion is 70 points, which makes it tied for the cheapest one in this book. You're paying about 1,000 points, like, for all of those guys. So you're paying about 1,070. I'm not going to really do the math right now. Just roughly that for that battalion to be on the table. Then you have the Death March, which is kind of like the old Death Rattle, like Legion of Bones or something like that. It's not bad. It has the White King, Black Knights, Grave Guard, and then 3 units of Skeleton Warriors. Unfortunately, it has Black Knights, but other than that, it seems like a pretty good one. It's one I will consider running. You have the Castellans of the Crimson Keep, which requires you to take the new named Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon, and 3 or more units of Blood Knights. Seems like a pretty good ability that it gives. I'll cover that one more in another video. I'll probably try that one. The Legion of Sacrament one, which requires Arcan, 2 Necromancers, and a Mortis Engine. Again, seems like a pretty good one. And then the Grand Host of Nagash, the first cohort. Extremely expensive point-wise because you're bringing Nagash and a unit of Morghast, and 3 or more units from Skeletons, Graveguard, and Black Knights. It's something I would consider trying. Again, like, none of these really jump out as incredible just at first glance, but I'll look more at them, I'll think of the potential combinations and crunch the numbers a bit more and see if there's a true winner later on. Perhaps the biggest winner in this entire book, in my opinion, other than players such as myself who like playing a very broad spectrum of death units, because that is kind of been given the keys needed to function at a higher level, at least I believe it has, is Nagash himself. So Paul Conti put out a video not too long ago saying he thought Nagash was going to be really, really good after this book. I disagreed with the reasons that he gave. And ultimately, I think he got the right conclusion, although GW went about it a little bit different than how he predicted, although not hugely different from how he predicted. But the big thing is that this is because Nagash is really made great, not because of Nagash's profile. Nagash is made great in this new system because of the Legion of Nagash. So, with all these the Grand Host of Nagash. So with all these different allegiances, you know, we have the regular command traits and all, but then there's special things if you take the specific hero that's supposed to go with them to lead them. So for Nagash, whenever you have a wizard in his army, they get to pick 1 additional spell from the lords, from either the 2 Lords of the Dead, which is vampires and the other one. But Nagash gets to choose 3 spells to learn, in addition to his base profile. Which on his base profile, he has 2 unique ones, plus he has, of course, Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield, giving him a total of 7 spells. Now the really big thing here is that Nagash can how many spells can he can attempt to cast and unbind 8 spells per turn, and he has 7 automatically. So bringing Nagash doesn't automatically cripple all of your other wizards, and because of his grand army, if you're bringing these other wizards within his allegiance, they're generating extra spells as well. So they have their unique spell. They have Arcane Bolt, Mystic Shield, which they probably won't be casting because Nagash probably will. So they have their unique spell and then an extra one that they've generated. And normally a wizard can only cast 1 spell per turn. So if you have 2 spells and you're only using 1 per turn, then Nagash can very easily cast his 8 spells per turn without crippling your other wizards, which has always been my complaint about Nagash. It's always been to maximize his effectiveness. You basically had to bring a bunch of wizards that weren't very good in combat and then take away all their magic. And just say, yep, you just paid all these points to, in essence, upgrade Nagash and bring a bunch of garbage around him, which is why he was never worth it before in my mind. But now, at 800 points, not only do I think he's going to be worth it, I think we're actually going to be seeing Nagash on the table in a somewhat regular basis. In tournaments, who knows? Like, The tournament meta is going to continue to evolve. There will be counters developed, of course, to everything. But we might see a brief season initially where players are testing Nagash even in the big tournament scene. In addition, bringing his specific battalion and the other things that really revolve around him in this book, up his survivability and up his offensive output, be it spells or whatever else, in so many different ways that Nagash is actually viable, which means I have to go out and buy a $100+ model that will take me a decade to paint without an airbrush. So I either have to buy an airbrush or spend the decade. I'll probably spend the decade because I'm pretty lazy about getting around to that airbrush. But I'm going to go and wrap it up there. Like I said, I'm going to do a deeper dive on what's changed for Death within the match play system. But I just wanted to give you a brief overview about the book, or at least for me, a brief overview about the book. Kind of talk about some of the highs, talk about a few of the things that have changed. Yeah, some of them aren't great for us well-established, long-running Death players, but as a whole, the book looks great. The new rules look great. I'm looking forward to trying out some of the new combos, some of the new pieces that have been released. So until next time, this is James, and happy gaming.